November 2nd, 2019. At this point, we are moving out of executive session, and we've got announcements, and I think we've got a very special announcement about the food forest. Xenia, all right.
Okay, so this is brief. I'm reporting on the Food Forest project. As you know, this project was created by Patty Bates, which is designed to benefit and aid many things, from flooding and seasonal costs of mowing to the quality of living for both local and other animals. The project was a group effort. It involved the Yellow Springs Tree Committee, the Miami Valley Fire Rescue, the local Boy Scout troop, the Greene County Environmental Services, Antioch College students, and volunteers from the community. We appreciate and thank the Village Council for the use of the land. In one day, we planted 61 trees and bushes, ranging from hazelnuts to elderberries. Everything went perfect, and in the end, we have a new, more biodiverse, charming little patch of land that with time will become a forest. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to, first of all, thank Xenia for all the work that he did. He did this as an Eagle Scout project, but he did a lot of work on this, and I really appreciate his help. Also, this was done with a grant from Greene County Parks and Trails, so that's the levy that supported this, the levy that's currently in place and, was just up for renewal. So, everybody needs to support that because they are giving grants out of that. And I also really, really want to thank the 40 volunteers that showed up that day. There were 40 volunteers that showed up to do grunt work and dig in that hard as a rock soil. But it went really well, and it was very nice to see it come to fruition. It was watered for the rest of this year by the Antioch students, and starting next year, it will be watered by the Boy Scout troop when needed. So I really appreciate everyone's help on this, and I just really, again, want to thank Xenia for all the work that he put into it.
Yeah, I just want to say I remember coming to that meeting of the Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts, and as soon as I talked about Patty's project, that just like resonated right away. So very cool. I also love that we've got the trail running through that area. Yeah, I mean that's so amazing. So
I have a question, or comments for Patty and Xenia. I noticed at the library, they have a flyer about their, perennial, their pollinator garden, and that they have a tree forest, then a flyer. And I'm thinking it would be really good if we had a flyer for the tree forest that you guys did that mentioned like some of the trees and bushes. And I don't know if there's a sign there or not, but it seems like it would be nice to have, if there's money, we could find money to have a sign, sort of like we did at the Glass Farm, that talks about it and the significance of it.
So, I believe we are planning on putting a sign up or something to house some flyers, which we are planning on putting up.
Yeah, we did talk about it. There was another Eagle Scout who was supposed to do that part of the project, but we kind of lost communication with that person. So Xenia was he was trying to think about getting it done in time, but he has to get his project done.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really have the time to complete that part of it. So maybe, if possible, the village can get another grant from Greene County Parks and Trails to maybe do a sign and some informational literature on what's going in there, what is in there, what may go in the future, which may be some additional, like thornless blackberries and things like that. Chris Hodgson from the tree committee was the one who helped pick out the species that went in there, and there are a lot of things in there that I was like, oh, that was edible. And, you know, that's kind of my background is forestry, and I didn't realize that some of those things were edible. So we did hope for that, Mary Ann. Unfortunately, it didn't come to fruition because the person who was going to do that, I guess, lost interest in that particular project and chose something else.
Well, I'll contact you, Patty, to find
Sure.
out who we would talk to at Greene County.
Yeah, it's just John Dobney. John Dobney's the executive director of Greene County Parks and Trails. And I can mention it to him. I'm presenting the project to their park commission in January at their meeting because it's in the middle of the day and Xenia can't attend. So I can mention it to him if you want, Mary Ann, and have him get in contact with you.
Yes, thank you, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is, you know, we do have another 15,000 from Greene County this year. So one way or another, we'll get some signage. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Patty. Thanks, Inya. And thanks to the Eagle Scouts as well. Very cool. All right. Any other announcements?
I was just going to talk about Giving Tuesday, but maybe you already have that on your list.
Go ahead.
All right, so I just want to make certain that everyone's aware that tomorrow is Giving Tuesday in the village of Yellow Springs and beyond, actually. This is the 4th year that there's been a Giving Tuesday in Yellow Springs, and it's spearheaded by the Yellow Springs Community Foundation. And I'd really like to extend my thanks to them for all of the excellent coordination they do with their website. This year, there's 32 nonprofits participating, and on one hand, that's really great because it's such a significant growth, but on the other hand, it's a challenge because when you're making a choice of giving, there's a lot of really good opportunities to choose from. You are able to join and give by logging on to Yellow Springs Giving Tuesday on the Community Foundation website, and I hope you participate. Thanks.
And I was going to say, they do make it easy because you can just like check them all
Yep.
and do all 32. So, yeah. So,
I'd like to,
yes.
I might need Colleen to help me, because I can't remember the actual date and time of the next Thursday.
Oh, and by the way, like, you know, a segue to that is that the utility roundup is one of those 32. So
All right.
go ahead. Yeah.
Excellent. So in an effort to continue to raise funds and to support the utility roundup program, Yellow Springs Brewery is hosting another Thirsty Thursday, but I'm going to,
I don't have the date in my book that I brought for the budget tonight. It was in the packet last meeting.
Last,
But
okay.
it is this month, in December. I
Right.
believe it's.
so to make sure you go to the brewery every Thursday this month. One of them will be Thirsty Thursdays. And if we find that information, we'll mention it during the meeting. But yeah, it's best to cover all your bases. Just go to the brewery all month.
That's right. Yeah, just go every Thursday.
Yeah, there you
So, I wanted to also mention, the school forest is happening, this weekend, so upcoming. So get your Christmas trees, out at the Glen, and, best place to do that. Also, I wanted to mention, the, Yellow Springs Arts Council is doing their, Arts Jumble. And on December 14th, Heartstrings is going to do their performance, which is always awesome. And then I wanted to mention, Karen had talked about this when she came to our last meeting, but the community photograph is scheduled to happen on December 14th at 6:30, and that's going to be at Mills Park Hotel. So love to see everybody there with smiling faces doing that community photograph. So, any other announcements? Okay, so then I think we've got the consent agenda, which is the minutes from our last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
I move.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then review of the agenda. Anything we need to add, change?
I would like to have just a few minutes to give a short update on the Village Manager Advisory Group.
Okay. Wait,
That's the police review group that convened, that I talked about a couple of weeks
the
ago.
ad hoc group?
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be very short.
Okay. Sounds good.
Under what,
so
old
we'll put-
business, or-
We'll put that under old business. Okay. Mary Ann, petitions and communications?
Yes, we just had 3 communications. One from the mayor's clerk with the charges from January through October from the police department to the mayor's office, and all eligible cases that could go to the mayor's court did. Then there was a letter from Dan Kerrigan, critical of the temporary transportation plan that was on Limestone, Walnut, and Short Street. And Todd Van Lane wrote a letter in support of increasing the speed limit on Corey Street through a certain area of it to 35 miles per hour.
Okay. All right, so let's move into legislation, and the first thing we've got is, yeah, and we've got quite a few. All right, actually, yeah, Denise, why don't you come up and kind of,
The budget's the first one.
oh. Oh, you're right, yeah, okay, so yeah, so let's start with ordinance 2019-35. Judy, title only.
All right. This is approving the 2020 annual appropriations and declaring an emergency, Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Yes, I move.
Second.
All right, Colleen?
I don't have any additional comments, just if there was any questions before we move into passing, hopefully, our budget for next year. And I want to thank everybody for the workshops and all the meetings to get it prepared.
All right. Yeah, and, you know, obviously a lot of time has gone into the budget. I don't know if, do we want to do any overview or?
We can. I've included the presentation into your packet. So I'll start from the top on revenues. We're looking to receive $13,934,279. Judy, are you able to pull that up?
I'll give you time.
Okay. And our total expense for fiscal year 2020 is $15,387,063. If you recall, the difference is driven by the capital improvements that we need to make. While Judy's pulling that up, I'll cover our revenue sources. Of the $13,934,279, the $7,286,694 are coming from charges for services. These are for enterprise funds. Local taxes make up 24% of our total revenues, and that's $3,042,200. On revenues, we also book intra-fund transfers, and that is moving funds within our accounts, so primarily reserves. And we book that as revenue, and we book that as an expense, so that's $2,900,000. Then our shared taxes and permits, that's $419,985. Miscellaneous receipts and reimbursements, $260,080. And then we have a small pot of fines, costs, and forfeitures, and permit fees, $24,600. All right, so, Judy, we're on the first revenue slide, so go up. I can just take over your computer.
Go for it. It's just like calling an old dog.
Oh,
It just comes along as it feels like.
it's still scrolling.
It's still scrolling.
Okay.
It's still scrolling.
Okay. Okay. It's still scrolling. Okay. All right, that scrolling screen is our expenses by category. Is there a way to stop it from scrolling? Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. These are all of expenses by funds. You'll see that our largest expense is in the electric operating fund. This is our electricity. The majority of that expense is for our power
So
supply.
by the way,
costs.
let's pull your mic in, because I heard that you're not always easy to hear.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Sean, is that good? Okay. So that's our fund with the largest expenditures. Then there's our general fund at $4,160,071, our sewer operating fund at $1,625,210, our water operating fund at $1,506,695, our street maintenance and repair funds at $896,084, Parks Recreation Fund, $534,323. Our Electric Capital Improvement Fund, that's $384,500. Water Capital Improvement, $303,000. Solid Waste Operating Fund and Sewer Capital Improvement Fund, sorry, I read those two together. Solid Waste Operating Fund is $290,500. Sewer Capital Improvement Fund is $288,000. Then we have a few various small funds that we've grouped together. That's $266,000, and then our police pension fund at $125,500 for a total of $15,387,063. Any questions on the overview? The presentation also includes a breakdown by expense. You'll see here that our contractual services is our largest type of expense at $5,717,375. Our personnel services at $4,214,388. Transfers, these transfers are fund, money that we move between funds. They're either moving from reserves into operating expense or reserves into capital improvements. And that's $3 million. Capital expenses at $1,379,500. Materials and supplies, $511,125. Our debt service, that's $471,875. Travel and training expense, $58,800, and miscellaneous expenses at $34,000, for a total of $15,387,063. Any questions on expenses by category? Okay. Your packet includes information on expenses broken out by the general fund, so you get an idea where those expenses are taking place within the general fund category, and that's the various departments within the general fund. That includes public safety, administration, council, planning and zoning, mayor, rental properties, cable TV, council commissions, library, and our mediation program. Any question on these expenses in the general fund? This is expenses by enterprise funds. I believe we cover many of these expenses. You'll see that our electric operating fund is our largest expense by enterprise funds, followed by contractual services within the electric operating fund. And then there's personnel, materials, miscellaneous. You'll see that our sewer operating fund is at $1,625,210. Our solid waste operating fund is $290,000, and our water operating fund at $1,506,695, for a total of $8,429,585. That's all of our enterprise funds. This is a breakout of expenses by category of capital. Where are we spending our capital funds? We're projecting to spend $1,379,500 in 2020, and this is the breakdown of that. $384,500 will be in electric capital improvements, followed by $303,000 in water capital improvements, $288,000 in sewer capital improvements, $206,000 in capital improvements and of street maintenance and repairs, $82,500 for parks and recreation, $75,000 in facilities, $16,000 in capital equipment. This is equipment that we're looking to purchase, I guess, used across several enterprises in the organization. $15,000 in state highway maintenance funds, and $9,500 in general fund. Any questions on expenses by category of capital? All right. One of the questions asked was also how personnel expenses break out across the organization. So this is the breakout of total personnel service expense across the organization. That expense for the entire organization is $4,214,388. The single largest expense is in public safety, and that's our police department at $1,507,145, followed by the electric distribution at $518,330, water distribution at $315,147, administration $296,713, sewer collection $281,992, street maintenance and repairs $266,939, sewer treatment $207,018, water treatment $202,068, council $161,038, the Bryan Center $156,220, planning and zoning at $115,897, parks $68,753, pool $60,800, mayor's office $32,028, and cable TV at $24,300. Any questions on expenses by category of personnel services? Okay. We broke out the category of contractual services. As you noticed, that as the expense by category, contractual services is our largest expenditure by expense category. And we broke out that expense by what department that expense is allocated to. So in contractual services, this is services that we hire someone from the outside to provide a service. That total $5,717,375. $3,721,750 is spent in the electric distribution. This is power cost. This is how much we pay for electricity that we buy. Followed by expenses in street maintenance and repairs at $331,350. Solid waste collection, $290,000. Large portion of that is the expense to have our sludge to be taken somewhere else. Sewer treatment, $251,000. Administration, $237,400. Public safety, $166,150. The Bryan Center, $135,400. Council, $106,750. Water treatment, $89,500. Sewer collection, $88,000. Water distribution, $79,300. Rental property, $46,500. Parks, $37,675. Auditor's expense, $37,000. Pool, $25,550. Mayor's, $23,700. Planning and zoning, $17,700. Cable TV, $10,200. Library, $10,000. Mediation, $6,600. Council commissions, $400. And Mayor's Court computer fund, $1,000. Any questions on contractual expenses? All right.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
What is, for the pool and the mayor, what are those expenses? Who are we paying? For what?
Colleen, are you able to speak to that? Or,
I can't see the PowerPoint. Which one?
The pool and the mayor?
The mayor, Mayor Pam, you mean under salary?
No,
Under contractual services.
I can't even see that. I'd have to break it down, but,
Well, contractual services would be her clerk.
no, she's under wages.
Huh?
The contractual, it was probably the prosecutor that we'd put in the budget. That
Oh.
would be a contractual service under the mayor.
Okay.
And then under pool, I know there's other contractors that help us with the pool that are in there, but there's multiple.
It could also, for the mayor's court, it could also be her software services and things like that.
Very good, yes.
I have it up, so we're
You
paying.
have the detail?
I do have the
Okay.
details. So for the pool, we have a $1,500 allocation for professional services, $2,000 of maintenance of equipment, $4,000 of electricity expenses, $2,200 of water expenses, $2,200 of sewer expenses, $10,000 in maintenance of facilities. We have advertising expense, licensing permits, operating supplies, those are $8,000, concession supplies, $5,000. Then we have a few smaller ones, such as safety equipment, $1,000. The Square service charges, that's the credit card charges, $1,000. That's where our contractual services for the pools. For the mayor's,
Well, and I think it's good to pause there because a lot of what I heard are things that come back. You
Some
know,
of those things come back.
The investment that we put into, you know, the concessions, for example.
mhm.
Yeah, we're gonna recover that.
Yes, I'm pulling up the mayor's.
And while you're pulling that up, I think that's a really good point. I know when we were talking about budget, we talked about how helpful it was to see the expense and revenue side for so many of these transactions that have both components, so that we can see that even though the revenue seems large, the expense is pretty much balanced and vice versa. So for me, that's really helpful, and I appreciate that there were some of that analysis was done.
For the mayor expenses, we have an $8,000 allocation in hardware and software and $15,000 in legal services.
Okay. Yeah,
that
yeah,
makes up
I was wondering whether
23,000.
it was legal.
Yep, so that makes up $23,000. And then the other expenses are from advertising, membership, postage.
No, that's okay. I just couldn't figure out what would account for 23,000, but largely legal.
Legal.
With some technical.
And the hardware, software, we pay for a subscription service for mayor's clerk system.
And we have not committed to that 15,000 yet, so. But
Right.
we've
We've
budgeted for
budgeted,
it.
but
Yeah,
it's not an expense that we have already committed to incur.
Right.
But we have it in the budget,
Forgetting.
should we need it.
Keep forgetting we're going forward, not backwards.
All right,
okay,
any questions on the budget? Okay.
all right. So, any other questions or comments? All right, if not, I will, I think we are gonna do a roll call on this, right?
If you could open the public hearing.
Yes, yeah, I
Then
will
we'll get there.
officially open the public hearing for any, yes, Megan?
I'm just wondering if you could share kind of a overview of kind of the state of municipal finances. You know, are revenues keeping up with expenses? Are there any, signs coming up that they might not? Kind of the general state of the health of the municipal finances would be great.
Lynn, do you want to jump in? Or,
That's a good question, because we do monitor a lot of our general fund money, especially with the local income tax, the property tax, everything that kind of incorporates most of our general fund. They've been steady. We haven't seen, there's been a small decrease in some of the local money that we've been receiving, But for the last 2 years that I've been here, it's been pretty steady right now.
From a budgeting perspective, one of my observations of our budgeting process is that Colleen is very, very liberal on the expenses and very conservative on the revenues. But as the year comes to an end, we are spending less than what we anticipated and bringing in more than what we anticipated. So I know from the last year's audit, we had net income of 500,000. We expect to stay within budget for 2019. For 2020, you see we're spending more money than we're bringing in, but a lot of that is due to capital improvements that we need to make, and so that's driving the expense there. And I also want to point out that there's been significant savings over the years to be able to make that capital improvement, make those capital improvements in 2020. So that's part of what's happening for fiscal year 2020, that we're spending more because we've been saving some of this money to make those capital improvements that are needed.
Yeah, and I might articulate that in a slightly different way, which is to say that, you know, we planned for moving those funds into capital improvements. But, I mean, Colleen, let's, you know, be realistic about what the next couple years look like. I mean, we're not talking about like being in the black, right? If we're projecting our.
If we continue with the aggressive capital, no, we won't be able to. And we're going to reevaluate again. We have probably one more year of funds that we have been putting aside to take care of the capital. And then we're going to have to just see what the rest of the revenue and expenditures. Expenditures always go up, and, you know, our revenue has been pretty level.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a concern, and it's something that we try to watch ahead so we can plan ahead if it looks like our revenue source is going to start depleting a little bit.
Right. Because I was going to say, if we want to keep on track with the capital improvements, I mean, we're going to be cutting into that general fund, right?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. Because it's already stretched just supporting the streets and the parks, along
Right.
with everything else the general fund does. Correct.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks.
you're welcome.
Okay. Which is why your council will continue to be working really hard at figuring out how we, you know, keep on track. But we gotta deal with this capital improvement stuff for sure. So, all right. Thanks, Josue. Thanks, Colleen.
Thank you, Colleen.
Any other questions? Laura?
I have two. One thing you might explain, I've heard this when I was on the campaign trail. Some people don't understand why the electric fund is so big. You know, like they think there's a lot of money there, so you might explain what that is all about. And then I noticed in the electric capital improvement, the biggest item for the 2020-2024 capital budget is changing out poles. And I guess I wanted to make a comment. This kind of goes with my clear skies, dark skies, let's protect our skies theme, is I've noticed that the poles that have been switched out are like, they're like gargantuan compared to what we've had. So that means they go up into the sky, the profile a lot more, and I think it's visual pollution myself. It also, unless we're making money on it, which I'd like to know, often municipalities rent out, they look at it like real estate. They rent out space on those poles to other entities. I mean, are we making these bigger for ourselves, for other entities? Can we keep them out of the sky? I'm just asking. It's the biggest budget item, too.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Laura. I'm going to speak to the electric fund, and then I'm going to have Johnny talk about poles. But what I will say is that, you know, we have talked for several years about, you know, whether we wanted to move some of those funds into, you know, other, you know, capital funds. But, you know, one of the things that we understand is that, you know, we're looking at the Third Circuit, and, you know, we're thinking about other, like, needs that we need electric-wise. And so that's why we have not shifted those funds out. That being said, we have continued to move funds into the electric capital improvements. So Johnny, you want to talk about poles?
So a lot of the poles that we're changing out are from the 1950s and 60s, and industry has changed, and now to put a transformer on a pole, it's gonna be 40-foot class 2. So we went to the standard, and so when we changing it out, they're going from 35 to 40, but a lot of people are seeing that when we get done completing the pole, we take it down to the telephone and the cable so they can switch over. So it looks like we're 20 foot taller than the last pole that was there, but we've already chunked off the top 15 foot of it to get it down so they can transfer their wires easier. If anything, we're raising about 5 to 10 feet. 10 feet's a maximum that we've ever raised a pole here in town, and it's to get clearance across things. But as far as increasing them just for other utilities, we have not done that. I know Dayton Power and Light just did it on Corey Street, but that was mandated by PUCO. And it wasn't that they had a choice. There was not enough room on the pole, and they said Verizon's got to have a spot, make room for them, and they made them change it at their cost. So we're not doing it for other things other than trying to get our stuff up to standards.
All right. Thanks, Johnny. Any other questions or comments? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Judy, if we could call the roll, please.
Indeed, Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. All right. Okay, so I think next, Denise, I'm going to have you come up and kind of start helping us understand some of these ordinances.
But there's one more that is actually not a
What?
Denise. It looks like it's a Denise, but it
Oh,
is
the
not a
traffic
Denise.
control thing. All right,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
yes, all right.
Yes.
So let's do that. Ordinance 2019-36 by title only.
Okay, this is repealing section 414.10, right turns on red prohibited of chapter 414, traffic control devices of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 414.10, right turns on red prohibited.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right. Josue?
Yes. Thank you, Brian. Section 414.10 requires the placement of a sign that indicates right turns on red are prohibited at the intersection of Dayton Street and Enon Road. This intersection does not require such a restriction because it is not in the designated school zone and does not require enforcement. So we're asking through this ordinance to repeal this section of chapter 414.10.
Okay. And again, I want to emphasize, this is not related to the intersection at Xenia and Limestone. So this is only for the intersection at Enon. So,
Dayton, thank you.
yes. Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Laura?
I did finally notice that sign at Xenia and Limestone. Why is it 8 to 4?
Yeah, which is not, relevant to the change that we're making, but we can answer that question, I
Johnny, do
think.
you know why it's 8 to 4? For the school zone?
Well, it should be 7.
That's the reason.
Or 7 to 3, I mean, when's school out, when's it in, when's it does, is it just when people, could it be like 7 to 9 and 3, 2 to 4? Just ask, yeah. It
I can
seems like it's
follow up, I can
overly,
follow up.
it's preventing people from making otherwise a turn that could be made.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I would say not relevant to what we're voting on, but, Bob Baldwin also, came to council 6 months ago and mentioned, evaluating that, so.
Well, it would be in this ordinance. If you wanted to change it, this would be the place to do it.
True, but I think that's not what we're gonna do tonight. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Judy, if you can call the roll, please.
Yes, Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Okay. Now you get to come up. And so if we can, kind of section out like the, start with junk vehicles and then.
Is that is that what's up first?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so, let me just kind of give an overview on the junk vehicles in general. The main thrust of this is that, we discovered that it was in two areas of the codified ordinances, and they were conflicting with each other. They were in the zoning code, where junk cars are not allowed, at all on private property, and they were in the, police or general offenses code as allowing for one on a property. So, after, talking with legal, we decided to go ahead and clean that up. And in that process, the planning commission decided that, we would, take it out of the zoning code, and leave it in the general offenses code. The police are better able to monitor junk cars. They can also run plates and titles and those kinds of things. And then we wanted to change the time period for this as well, because the old code allowed a person to basically they'd get 30 days, and then at the end of the 30 days, they could come in and ask for an extension of 60 days. And now now you're into this 90-day period. And it was just becoming, difficult. We've had some cases where that has proven to be a problem. So we just wanted to pull this all together, make it very black and white in that either that you don't have junk cars beyond a certain time period, and there's a distinction between a car that, breaks down, needs to be repaired, and a junk car. I think that we clearly have a distinction there. These are cars that are pretty much often abandoned, or they have just been left in a driveway. I think as a community, we have to be concerned about what is the environmental impact with these types of junk vehicles, because there's, besides the motor oil, there's antifreeze, Freon, there's radiator fluids, those things, transmission brake fluid, different types of batteries, automotive batteries, and and I think that we just, we have seen a lot of these showing up on private properties that are just kind of becoming a part of the earth over time. And it's an issue that they have contamination that can spread into the soil, the plants, the groundwater. It's a concern. So I think the police department is really good about being able to determine one that has been there a long time and someone's car who just broke down. I think if there's services available, if someone is having a hardship, if they can't put it into their garage or put it in a storage facility, I think that there's other options. We have a community outreach person with the police department. They can notify other agencies, other groups in the community that can help someone if it is a case where their car's broken down and they need to get to work and they need to have some help with that.
And so, am I correct that 7 days is kind of the new timeline for these?
It's 7 days, and then, which pretty much, a car that we're gonna identify is probably one that's been there much longer than that. But then a phone call would be made and say, hey, this is our ordinance, you need to remove this within the next 7 days. If they don't, then they could issue a citation, and they have to remove it within 15 days, or the village then takes action.
Okay.
There was a couple of, something that I overlooked that's actually in the definitions. Under A, definition 66007A, definitions 4, and I wanted to have us strike out, because there was also under for a continuous period of 30 days or more. I just wanted to strike that out so that everything lines up.
Okay?
The only other thing that we were talking about here was, if is 3 years old or older, I didn't quite understand that one, but we can keep it, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So, obviously, we need to get into the 3 ordinances, but are there any questions or comments from council? Okay. So Denise, from what I heard, are you recommending an amendment on one of these?
Yes, an amendment under 66007A4, striking out the line that says for a continuous period of 30 days or more.
Okay.
So that's on the reverse of ordinance 2019-37. If you're looking on your paper
Right.
packet, it's the Exhibit A
Okay,
under number 4.
And
Okay.
everything else stands as it is.
all right. Okay, so so Judy, let's read in 2019-37, title only.
All right, this is repealing section 660.07, storing junk vehicles, unlicensed vehicles, and inoperable vehicles on private property with permission of owner of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 660.07, storing junk vehicles, unlicensed vehicles, and inoperable vehicles on private property with permission of owner.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second?
All right, I'm going to open the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Okay, so it sounds like there is, on this ordinance, a recommendation to,
I'm sorry, but something you said prompted me to look at it, and I hadn't really looked at it before. So it does seem that a junk vehicle has to be at least 3 years old. So that means that you could have an unworkable car that, was in a wreck, not licensed. It was 1-year-old or 2-year-old.
That's why we were talking about maybe striking it, but I didn't want to make this too complicated. I think the other things are really what's most important, is if it's, and that is a good point, if it's a wreck and it's just sitting there, it's being parted out, maybe they're working on something else, I don't know.
I don't hear anyone jumping up.
I hear what the point you bring up, yes, and I see, Denise, why there was some consideration of just striking it to make it, all junk cars are created equal. Is a new junk car better than an older junk car? So it sounds like the 3 years age was random or arbitrary,
Yeah,
but
I mean, I don't know that if it, and it's not really clear in this as to whether it has to be all of these things or can just be a few of them, so that's why we could leave it in there.
well, I mean, I guess this is also an opportunity to, amend if
strike it.
there's,
Okay,
okay?
yeah, that's fine.
So,
Strike it.
and then, so then Denise made another recommendation about a change in this.
Striking that 30 years.
30
Thir-
days.
30
Years,
days, I
yes.
mean, in
So
number
that will
4.
then change B to A and C to B, which I will fix for Judy.
Okay. So I'm gonna close the public hearing and then, I guess entertain a motion that includes those changes.
Yeah, so I move that we approve this with the change of striking number 4, or just striking the 30 days in number 4. in exhibit.
The line, for a continuous period of 30 days or more.
Striking that phrase, and then also striking under number 6 in that exhibit, A.
Okay? Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Judy, I guess we're gonna do a roll call here?
All right, McQueen,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so next up, we've got ordinance 2019-38. Judy, we can do that by title only as well?
All right, this is repealing section 1260.03 driveway standards, access easements, parking and storage of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 1260.03 driveway standards, access easements, parking and storage.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right, I'm gonna open the public hearing. Any questions or comments? All right, if not, I'm gonna close the public hearing, and Judy, if we can call the roll?
Yes, Krieger,
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Okay, and in this set, we finally have 2019-39, title only.
This is repealing section 1272.05 enforcement penalty of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 1272.05 enforcement penalty.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right, I'm gonna open the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Closing the public hearing, and let's call the roll.
All right, Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about trees, plants, and shrubbery.
Okay, well, the main thrust of the weeds ordinance changes was that we want to remove the responsibility of the village to remedy it. That has just created a big roadblock for us. It requires that we have to get bids from at least 3 contractors, and it slows the process down. So we want to go straight to just citing. We will notify them, give them so many days to remedy it. If they don't, then we can issue a citation.
And then we also feel that bringing that into mayor's court is
Yes.
a good way to resolve these issues as
Yes,
well.
yes.
Okay. So before we get into the legislation, any questions or comments about these next 4 ordinances?
Nothing substantive. I've just, whenever I saw the long lists of the types of plants, I just wondered if, if something changed, if some other invasive species or something else popped up with it. You have to do another modification of the ordinance, or can we
So we
just
had those
refer to the
vetted
list?
by Nick Budis
Mhm.
about 6 months ago.
Mhm.
And so he shared with us kind of their most current list.
Okay.
So, and I think the Environmental Commission has been really good at keeping track of that as well. So,
So we-
good question. Yeah.
Yes, and I was just wondering, like I said, if something changes, I don't see if something stops being invasive, we want to take it off the list necessarily, but if something else came on, does it,
Yeah.
by definition, require another amendment to the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. And could that be remedied by something that's pointing to another source of information? All the plants that are listed in this volume, and then we just change the volume, instead of having to change the ordinance.
I mean, yeah, that I don't know.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I'm
So,
good.
but I think that's a fair comment, which is, like annually, we might want to, review that list.
Mhm.
And maybe that's something to put on the Environmental Commission's docket, so.
So I think
We
that's
did
a
that. Oh, go
really good, question though, is there a way to maintain a list of invasives, undesirable invasives, separate from within the ordinance, so that the ordinance can just refer to some list? And so that the list could be maintained as evergreen, little plant pun there, rather than having to update the ordinance itself.
So maybe that's a question for the Environmental Commission and, Nick Budis or, Glen Helen Association. My guess is that it probably doesn't change
That
that often.
frequently, yeah.
I mean, I think we know what the
Yeah,
invasives are, but I will say, it was about 6-9 months ago that, Nick was here and noticed some things that we needed to update.
And that same thing happened with the, in the planning code under suggested species of trees.
Right.
To plant in our public right-of-ways.
Yep.
That hadn't been updated in 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of changes to that as well.
Okay, but yeah, so let's check that out. Okay, so I think we'll go through these ordinances. So 2019-40, Judy, title only?
Okay, this is repealing section 764.01, trimming of trees, plants, and shrubbery of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 674.01, trimming of trees, plants, and shrubbery.
Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right, I'm gonna open the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Yes.
I just have a comment about the process. I think these were all under, correct me if I'm wrong, like a consent agenda for the first reading.
Yep.
I would really recommend kind of, well, I don't know, I don't want to, I know you're trying to be efficient and everything, but kind of have the rationale, the explanation, the discussion at the first reading so that people can come to the second reading and the hearing if they have any comments about it. I just feel like at this point, this is when we're getting kind of, a little more explanation about some of these measures, and I think it would be good to let people know before, if they're watching at home, they don't really have a chance to come to the hearing. So I know you're trying to be efficient, but if there's a way that you could also kind of explain some of these measures on that first reading, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Megan. If I'm not mistaken, there was a cover sheet about all of these changes in the last packet. So we did try to cover that in the packet, but I think maybe your point is also that that could be highlighted at the meeting. So, okay, any other, Laura?
Both 674.01A and 674.04. I guess I would like you to reconsider and keep this tool in your tool chest. I mean, it's very typical for cities to, not every job, usually by the season, they hire a contractor who, when they have to go in and mow or remove shrubbery, then at the end of the year, they assess it, any of the costs unpaid onto the auditor's roll. It's very typical. Now, it doesn't mean you have to, but why take that tool away?
Okay. I think that's a good comment. I will respond, since I know a little bit about like some of the challenges we've had, one of them being that we don't have any contractors that want these jobs. And secondly, that I think the mayor's court option still allows for something like that. But, I think that is something to consider. But I know that, part of what brought this on is that it's been a real challenge for us to find contractors. Am I wrong?
No, you're correct, Brandon. We had a situation where contractor just wouldn't take it. The resident or the individual had made it impossible to mow.
Right.
So that person gets cited into court.
Yes.
Yeah. So but that doesn't totally disregard the comment, but that was, what's come up. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I'm gonna close the public hearing, and, Judy, the roll?
Yes, Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Okay, 2019-41, title only?
This is repealing sections 674.02, removal of plants and weeds by owner of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 674.02, removal of plants and weeds by owner.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right, I'm gonna open the public hearing. This is, the next three are part of, resolving these issues around how we address shrubbery issues. So I'll open the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Okay, if not, I'm going to close the public hearing, and if we can call the roll.
Yes, Krieger.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Pausch.
Yes. All right, 2019-42, title only, please.
This is repealing section 674.03, removal of trees, weeds, and grasses by village notice of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 674.03, removal of trees, weeds, and grasses, notice and enforcement.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right, I'm going to open the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Laura?
Same comment, a little slightly different theme. You know, you're increasing, you're making it that government's only way of dealing with things is to issue citations for crimes. So Josue's faced with this situation. He has to give somebody an issuance for a minor misdemeanor. I mean, my hope, and you'll hear this from me when I'm on council, is how can we take away opportunities to charge people with crimes and stop treating everything like a crime? You know, I mean, there's enough opportunities in the system as it exists without creating more. And this one's an obvious one for a civil remedy rather than a criminal remedy.
Okay, thanks, Laura.
And I would like to add a comment to that. I think that we would, in most cases, the situations get resolved by a phone call. Our team's really good at following up with a phone call to the homeowner, it gets addressed. If those don't, a letter resolves the issue. The citation is our last resort. It's an unfortunate business that we're in, that we have to have these tools, but I think the vast majority of the incidents will get addressed with a phone call. If not by phone call, with that first letter. So this wouldn't be our go-to right away. We would initiate a call, issue a letter, and if that doesn't work, we have this tool available to us.
But you're taking away another tool that's an intermediate step.
The mowing on their behalf, and yes, I understand that. I understand that, but in the time that we try to using it, no one would take the job, and it was such a burdensome work to try to get 3 bids and speak with a potential contractor about what the work entail, to then have a contractor show up and said, I'm not touching it. It's impossible to mow.
So another way that cities deal with it is they send their city crew out to do it, and they do the same thing. They assess the cost. So on those jobs that nobody else would touch, you could send the village crew.
I guess I'll say that my understanding is zoning, Denise has a lot of work on her plate. And having to continue to deal with things like this is an added, takes away from other things that she could be doing, like building permits and things like this. So as Josue said, people have an opportunity to get it corrected. And if they don't get it corrected, they can go to mayor's court. I don't see it as a big deal.
So I'm going to officially open the public hearing, and just make sure we check that box off. Any other questions or comments? I mean, I guess I do want to, since unfortunately Kaneda cannot be here tonight, I know that one of her concerns, which kind of relates to what Laura's brought up, is the challenges with a complaint-based system. And that being said, you know, I think that, and Laura, I think you've alluded to this, it is something that I think we need to look at. It doesn't, I guess, make me change my decision tonight, but I think it is something that, that we need to look at, in terms of how do we, you know, make sure that we have, the right kind of justice system that we want, and I look forward to you being, here next month to talk about that. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Emily.
Hi, this is Emily Seibel. And I was just thinking, I know that the village has a limited budget, and obviously Denise has so much on her plate already, but I'm wondering if there's a way to at least explore moving the non-criminal misdemeanors or civil violations out of the YSPD and back into the municipal side. So it would maybe be not Denise, but a designee of Denise or someone else, another member of the village staff actually delivering any misdemeanor citations, because otherwise people might get confused and think that it's a criminal issue. And then it also, it just seems like the crossover, I think in a larger community, it would actually be the zoning office issuing the citations and not the police department.
All right. Thanks, Emily. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Judy, if we can call the roll?
Yes, McQueen.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Okay, and then finally, we got 2019-43, title only, please.
This is repealing section 674.04, assessment of costs by the village of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Okay, so similarly, this is kind of the other piece to wrap up this component of how we handle the shrubbery at all issues. I'm going to open the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Okay, if not, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Judy, roll call?
Yes, Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Queen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Okay, our last piece of legislation is 2019-44, and I think we can do that by title only as well.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, I was in the wrong entire thing. This is authorizing and directing the submission to a vote of the electors of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, a proposal to amend certain provisions of the Charter of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, to be voted upon at the next regular municipal election on March 17th, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Okay, Judy, is this you?
Certainly. So, as you may recall, you recently placed this on the ballot for the November election as a single issue vote. There was a discussion and feedback from the electorate stating that they would have preferred that those be separated out, one as the mayoral term limit and the other as the vote 16 issue. It was not clear, although a lot of voters wanted that vote 16 issue to be two separated issues. So what this reflects is kind of how that looks, and the legislative explanation that I've gone into a little bit in the preface is that legal counsel suggested that you cannot put before the voters an either or, that council needs to themselves determine what it is that you want to put before the electorate on the ballot. So that section 6 reads one way, and you determine what that one way will be, and that those options are provided to you in Exhibit A and Exhibit A2, and then Brian had asked that that a different separation be provided to you, and that's in the second draft, where it breaks it down into Exhibits A, B, and C. And so I throw it back to you as a discussion as to how you would like that charter change to look.
So, so let's clarify a little bit. So, Chris is concerned about the way that I guess I articulated it is what?
Well, he gave an example which is useful. It's not precise, but it's useful in terms of thinking about it, which is that, let's say that you'd like to pass a 100 mil levy. You're not sure that it will pass. So on the ballot, there is a vote for a 100 mil levy and a vote for a 50 mil levy. So what do you do if they both pass? I mean, that's sort of the conundrum. How do you make this language fit so that if both issues pass, all of the language fits? And it's difficult because, for example, one option here reads, non-US citizens who meet the age requirement. Okay, well, that depends on whether you're passing vote 16 or not, Or does it mean that we're referring to ORC entirely? It's not, I think that what voters were asking for in the last election, what was frustrating for people was that they felt like something was being pulled over on them. You council are trying to pull something over on us by conflating two issues into one issue. And instead of making that language completely clear, what you're voting for here is persons who are non-US citizens, but who are village residents and who are age 16, 17 and up, are permitted to vote in municipal elections. That was the frustration. So that's a piece of it, is just getting the language quite clear so that voters understand what it is that council's putting before them.
I talked to Judy this afternoon because I wasn't quite clear what the confusion was. And from the conversation that I had with her, I have a suggestion. I think the mayor thing is straightforward.
Right.
The issue is, do we want to have 16-year-olds, 16 to 17-year-olds to be able to vote, and do we want to have non-citizens be able to vote? So in order to make it clearer, my suggestion is that at this next election, we have the vote 16 as a potential change for citizens. If you're a US citizen and you're 16 years old, you can vote in local elections. And then at a future election, if we so choose, have another potential amendment saying, if you qualify as a Yellow Springs resident, regardless of your citizenship, you can vote in local elections. And then that makes it very clear. There's not a confusion, and I'm suggesting it that way because it seemed like it started out as the vote 16 being the issue and the citizenship sort of tagged in on the end.
Yeah, I think that's great. I wrote the same thing down, mayor, 16 plus citizen, and then non-citizen residents. But I think the important part that I didn't think about was getting the 16 done first, in the first election. Then when the resident / non-citizen comes up, it's whatever the appropriate age is. Because at that point, it's set. We know it's either 18 like it is now, or it's 16, because we changed it the previous election. So I agree, it's actually three separate issues. Mayor 1 by itself, vote 16 by itself. And then once we are set on where we're going to be in terms of voting age, then bring in the resident, non-citizen voting. It's, forces it to be 2 election cycles. And I guess the question has to be, well, you can't do them, you shouldn't do them at the same time. So I think Mary Ann put that final piece of the puzzle for my thinking.
All right, Lisa?
I understand the argument that's being made for clarity. For me, the question has to do with the way we're enacting our village values of being a welcoming and inclusive community. And I've been compelled by the communication from community members who are adults, who are in the country legally, who would have the opportunity to vote on local matters, and who do not have the opportunity now. And I think that's very meaningful, particularly in our current times. So I understand the pragmatic value of splitting it, but I would ask the council to consider what we're letting fall if we take out that aspect of including the ability of non-citizens to vote.
And, yeah, I'll say, I'm with Lisa on this one. I think, I've been thinking a lot about, how we, figure out this conundrum or whatever around language. And I guess I feel that, as I look at this, the 16 piece, and I shared with Judy some language that I had drafted like early on, which, what's already in the charter is general election laws will apply. So, the exception of 16 and 17-year-olds can be tied into that. Non-US citizens could be a subpoint A under section 6. So there is a way, I think, to separate those two, because that was my understanding, was that the concern was that two changes to section 6 without like segregating them was a problem. But I think there is a way to segregate them. So what are you thinking, Judy?
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is, you're counsel for the Village of Yellow Springs. If your values say to you, both of these things should be permitted, those are our values. Exhibit A2 is both of those things, and it's permissible because it's straightforward. If I'm voting for that, I know exactly what I'm voting for. It does conflate those two issues, so basically it's saying, well, citizens, you have to decide whether you think both of these things are okay to vote yes. But it also says, well, these are our values, and you vote yes or you vote no. As opposed to saying, well, pick which one is more important to you, or have the ability to say no to this value and yes to that value. Basically, you're making a statement as counsel that both of those things are equally important to you if you go with the Exhibit A2. And then what Brian's contemplating is he got more elaborate with language to try to separate those out so that people could still do that and it wasn't in conflict. One would be in section 6 and the other would be in a different section. And I guess it's a council decision as to whether you feel strongly about what the values are and how they should be put before the citizens, or whether you want to separate them for whatever reason.
Okay, so I guess what Judy, it's, just to, I guess, summarize, is at our last meeting, we said we were gonna make these 3 separate issues.
Right.
So what Judy is putting forward is, do we, go back to 2 issues, or do we create language to keep them as 3 separate issues?
I say we make them 3 separate issues. I mean, and at that point, when I'm deciding how I'm going to vote on those 3 things, they're not related. The mayor thing, again, is separate. 16, that's anybody that's 16. We're just talking about lowering the voting age. We're not even considering a person's legal status or anything of that nature.
Right.
One of those 16. Then, and maybe we can waffle and discuss on this, but whether it happens at the same time as 16 really probably is not that relevant either. I mean, at the point that we put all 3 on the ballots, at that point, 16 and 17-year-olds will not be able to vote on it. But everyone else can vote on the mayor issue, the vote 16, and separately, the citizenship, residential voting issue. So 3 separate things that are separate, do them all at the same time. I mean, if we do them all at the same time, which is whatever the next opportunity is to put all 3 on the ballot, I think we're making a positive statement about our values, not proposing that we're holding anything back. So all 3 separate issues, put them all on the ballot at the same time.
Okay, Lisa?
Well, I keep wishing that we could stick with having it as 3 separate issues. So
Okay.
if there's a way to do that without, I totally understand, though, that conflict, if it's like an either or, that makes perfect sense. So if there's a way to avoid that, then I would support going with that. And if there's not a way to do that, my preference would be to keep it as the 2 combined.
Okay,
But I
Right.
understand that there's 4 of us and we don't all agree.
right. Mary Ann?
Whether we wait 6 months or a year, or whatever it is for one of these things, to me, it does not seem like a critical issue. If all 3 can be done at one time, I'm okay with that. given what I understood that would be both confusing and maybe not doable, I suggested doing one time and the other time.
Okay. So the way I think we can do the three, and the mayor's part, it's a different part of
Yeah,
the charter,
yeah,
so
we know
that's
that.
easy, is that, when I look at the current, and I forwarded this language to Judy, I had something that said, the general election laws of the state of Ohio shall control, with the exception that, if you're 16 or older. So I think that separates that piece. And then I think we can layer on a subpoint A that if it passes, that says, additionally, non-US citizen residents, blah, blah, blah. So I think there is a way. Is this what I said?
It is, and what,
Yeah,
if you,
so I had amended section 6 to say, the general election laws of the state of Ohio shall control in all elections except that Village of Yellow Springs electors are 16 years of age or older and is otherwise provided, whatever. So,
These are all copies if you want to.
yeah, so I think there is a way to, suggest an amendment to the charter for 16 and 17-year-olds. And then a separate thing could be added about non-US citizens. So I think that is something that should be able to fly. And my understanding was that the only concern was that when we were looking at 2, it wasn't clear how they were gonna meld into this section. So if there is like a subpoint A, what do you think, Judy? Does that address that?
well,
Or
we're
is there
still
something I'm
amending
missing?
section 6. You had another, you had addressed section 92, which speaks to who are electors. And that's where you had suggested that if we amend section 6 to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote, and then the other charter change proposed is to section 92, which tells you who are electors.
I think, my sense of the meeting is that all the council members, if it's feasible to separate out 16-year-old and non-citizen and have it on one election cycle, that we would support it, if that's feasible. So I would like to suggest Brian or whomever wants to work on this, do it outside of council and bring it back, rather than doing it at the table, does it have to be done to
No,
this meeting?
you can pass it as an emergency on the 16th. It's just that there are a lot of variables in play. So we may bring you back, well, here's what it looks like this way, and this way, and this way, and then you will have to absolutely decide on the 16th which direction you're going in. I will say that if I were, I guess it doesn't make a difference, but in terms of what the Board of Elections has to do and what the message is, the Board of Elections and I would have to create a list of those persons eligible to vote only on local matters, list that's kept separately. So practically, these two issues are the same issue for the Board of Elections and for me in terms of maintaining a list and that kind of thing, kind of administratively. The other piece is, interestingly enough, to me, they're both welcoming community issues. They are the same issue from my perspective. But I understand separating them out because some people agree with that and some people don't agree with that. And that means they'd like to vote on those as separate matters. It's going to be a little unwieldy. We just have to hack through it, and you may have 3 options to attach to the ordinance as exhibits. You select one, vote on it, pass it as an emergency on the 16th. If everyone's good with that, we can
Okay.
make it happen.
Let's do that. Yeah, and I had
Okay.
forgotten about section 92, which is about the electors, so.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so I think we know what we're trying to do here.
Okay.
With the caveat that there's a reason why at least, those 2 issues were combined, because it's hard to parse them out. Okay, So I think we're not voting on this. We're gonna bring it back.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments before we move into citizen concerns? Okay.
I have a comment on that. I
Yes.
ran a list of people who wouldn't necessarily be coming out to vote in the primary. Because a lot of people, you really gonna have to do a lot of education of the electorate, because at a primary, it's mainly a party function. So Democrats and Republicans might know they need to come out and vote, but independents don't, or people who don't have a candidate on the ballot. So you might consider, if you want everybody to come out at an election where they know they need to come out, for sure, you'd put it on the general election cycle.
Okay. Thanks, Laura.
There's 240 people who are not Democrats or Republicans
Mm.
when I just ran it, based on this last election.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we're now at the part of the agenda where if you have any questions or comments about things that are not agenda items, we welcome those and ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. So do we have any citizen concerns? Okay, if not, we're gonna move into old business, and we're gonna talk a little bit about the council retreat.
You know,
Yeah,
I noticed that we have two people sitting here who are waiting for new business, and I'm wondering if we might switch it around so that they could,
we could do that, although I would say our discussion about the council retreat's gonna be pretty, I think, pretty quick.
You did add the manager's advisory group update to old business, I think.
Uh-huh.
If it's new, it's less of an issue.
Okay.
Want to put it on the end of new business, in which case, this is quick, council retreat's quick.
I mean,
We're fine. Okay, okay.
all right. Well, I mean, I think, Judy, do you want to just kind of talk about what is sort of on the docket for the council retreat?
Well, you're set for January 15th, which is a Wednesday. It's 9 to 3. It's going to be at Antioch University Midwest. And you had envisioned that as, in large part, dealing with board and commission issues. And I've spoken a bit with Brian about the agenda, and so can bring an agenda to the next meeting for you folks to mess with a little bit, and then you don't have to approve it at that meeting. You've got one meeting in January to set that agenda firmly, so you've got a little bit of lag time. If folks want to send me anything you think is pressing that you'd like to see on that retreat agenda, I can frame something out for you folks to look at on the 16th, and then we'll get it finalized either then or on January 2nd.
Is the review of the commission effectiveness input on that meeting, so we don't have to have it done until then?
Yes.
Okay.
But I guess one question I had is, I mean, what do you guys think in terms of, so we've allocated 6 hours. The boards and commissions, just kind of, overall, I mean, are we talking about 2 hours or less? I mean, what do you?
So I can kind of back into that with some ideas. So the commission effectiveness, presumably everybody's on track, gathering that data from their commissions. I offered to collate that information, turn it into one document so that all the feedback would be in one file. And some themes across commissions. I would think that conversation might be an hour.
Okay.
Okay, and then, then I think, I think there's the aspect of the discussion about what is the actual list of commissions, existing ones and new ones, right? So we have the full potential list. And I think that if we're going to be talking about phasing out some of the commissions, that might be complicated, so maybe, I don't know, 2.5 hours total? Or at least 2, but not less, I wouldn't think.
Okay.
I don't know what others think.
I'm not sure that collating responses from commissions makes sense. I think that each commission might have different
Sure.
responses, and each individual within the commission might have different
Yeah,
responses.
I didn't mean merge.
Oh,
I meant simply pull everything into a single cohesive document. And if there are some themes that are notable that cross them, I would call that out. But I'm not proposing merging, I'm just putting them all together in one file. But I mean, that's no big deal.
Right.
That doesn't affect the duration of the discussion at the retreat.
So, I mean, my goal would be a 90-minute discussion, but, you know, maybe we need to allow 2 hours. And then, you know, the other idea for this retreat in my mind is the village goals and what Josue talked about at the last meeting, which is the village team priorities, which, you know, come together. So I guess, you know, in my mind, if we can be, you know, more efficient about the commission discussion, then we may be able to get away with one retreat. If not, then we may have to have a part 2, and I think that's okay. So,
and some of the discussion of the commissions will occur as we're talking about goals too. For example, I'm seeing, as I went through the council goals, that there are no goals really for 2019 that fall under with the Environmental Commission, although the Environmental Commission is doing work, including like the Vernay thing. So, but as we're so I think that there was, ideally, it'll be a merging as we move along. And I don't know if this was said, but who are the liaisons on the commissions? That's something we'll be talking about at the retreat as well?
yeah, I mean,
Or at
we
least
won't be able to make a decision,
vote,
but we'll be
what
able
we would like.
we'll be able to talk about
What
what
our
our
priorities
priorities are, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the most challenging, I don't mean that in a bad way, but just a challenging aspect of the conversation may be if there's a recommendation to fold a particular commission and what the rationale for that would be, and how any of the village values and goals that map to that commission are still covered adequately without the commission. As this group knows, I have serious worries about capacity. When we're talking about adding 3 new commissions, something like that. So I just am concerned about coverage and capacity.
All right, so let's allow 2 hours for boards and commissions, you know, with the understanding that some of that will segue into goals and, you know, that other piece. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a great retreat. So, a lot of good stuff to talk about. Okay. So then, Lisa, were you gonna talk about the next topic?
Oh, the one I added?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I think that's old business.
Yeah, it is. I just want to let folks know that the group that I described, the ad hoc group, has completed their convening. And the report is almost ready. The process is to have everybody who participated in the process confirm their agreement to the report first, and then it will go to Josue, and it will become public, and the people who participated in the process will be named. And so that should come, I think, at the next meeting. And the other thing that I'll bring to the next meeting, with great gratitude to the process participants, is, you know me and how I like SWOT analyses. So a little debrief on how, you know, what their experience of the process was. I mean, for me, it was very fascinating. I learned a lot. It was extremely time-consuming and not necessarily efficient. It took a lot of time, but I'm not sure we have thought through how it could be, whether there may be a role for a committee like this, you know, in light of the H&H report. And again, I think you all know that this is different than the Citizen Advisory Board that has been discussed to listen, to be a sounding board for citizen concerns. But I think it was a really positive experience overall. I'm really grateful to the chief and to the people who participated from the YSPD, because it was new and it was worthwhile. So when we go to agenda planning, I will be asking for some time on the next meeting for the report to be, and debrief mostly, but, I mean, the report will be available, but for the debrief to be brought to the council.
Great.
And that's all.
Yeah. And I just want to say also, you know, I know that these kinds of things are, you know, it's always a challenge when we try something different. But, you know, I again want to emphasize, and what I was really happy about is trying to explore something that involved citizens, that had more objectivity in the mix, in my opinion. But I also understand that, you know, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. And so, you know, so Lisa, I appreciate that you were very forthcoming at the last meeting about this and have brought it up again, and that you know, want to be really clear about what we're trying to do, which I think is a good thing. So, okay. Questions or comments? Megan? Okay, you're good. Okay, so then we're going to go into new business, and we're going to talk about the Home Inc. Senior affordable housing PUD. Is that you, Denise?
Yes.
All right.
So the planned unit development section of the zoning code was not really written for this situation that came up. Typically, you have a preliminary plan and you have, you know, within a year to come back and submit your final plan. Because Home Inc. didn't get their funding, they then had to come up with new guidelines, I guess, that were done by the Ohio Housing Finance Agency. And so they made some modifications to the original blueprint or site plan. What staff is required to do, and we treated it as though it was moving forward in that we were saying, okay, do they have the choice of, are they going to have to come back and do a complete preliminary plan over again? Or is there the option of allowing them to have a one-year extension? And in order to do that, staff is given the opportunity to make that decision based on whether it's considered a minor change or a major change. Well, I mean, there's a little bit of confusion with the footprint originally from the architect, and I thought it was something I wouldn't be able to really make a determination on, because it was going to be like 2,300 square feet. But it ended up only being about 400 and some, because he had not added some other numbers into the porches surrounding that. Now, even though it is an increase on the south side of more than 10 feet, it is really not, it's mostly a porch. So staff made the recommendation after discovering this kind of at the last moment, although we were fully prepared to go all the way through with the preliminary PUD again, that I felt it was a minor change. In this new plan, that will no longer be a 4-story. Originally in the 4-story, they had just 8 apartments on the 4-story, so they've actually lowered the height. They've chose to be 6 feet variance to the front yard setback on the south side by Friends Care Center, which is 20 feet for front yard lot lines in RC. And so they have 2 front yard lot lines because they have Marshall Street and Herman. They made the decision to keep it away from the residential area, so they pushed it back, and it's actually 30 feet from Marshall, making it 14 feet, something like that, from the Friends Care Center side. So it was just, to me, it was not that big of a deal, and Planning Commission discussed it. They decided they had originally asked for like 55, 56 parking spaces, and then they asked and received approval for a further reduction down to 43. Now they've decided with some of the criteria changes in this new proposal, where there might be actually people that are gonna be younger, that they will go with the 55, 56 parking spaces. So Planning Commission agreed and voted to have them move forward with council to ask for a 1-year extension.
Okay. Thanks, Denise. Emily, did you want to?
I think it's really straightforward.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Questions or comments?
The unit count is the same,
Yep.
and really all the bedroom mix inside that, for stipulations, that'll be about the same. 2 bedrooms and 1 bedroom. So a lot of the.
So why don't you get up and
I'm
give
sorry.
your name?
See, that's right, yeah.
I'm Wes Shepard from State Bank. So I certainly embrace what Denise is saying. It's the square footage did turn out to be only 400 feet difference, and it's, 20, how many square feet is it, Denise? Do you have the number there?
Sorry?
How much is the square footage footprint? I don't remember these things.
It's like 19,000.
Okay, so out of 19,000, so it's 400, so it's a very small change. On the parking, we decided it's really, at the end of the day, it's a little more cost, but it's cost effective to actually go ahead and put the parking in, that way we have it. It doesn't cost nearly as much to do it when you have all the equipment there, and then it doesn't create a mess later. And I think it'll be more aesthetically sound as you go forward, so. What's that? Yes, and the neighbors wanted us to do that, and I'm glad we were able to move it away more from the residential, that sort of thing, but functionality-wise, it will be very, very similar, so.
Okay. Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Any questions or comments from citizens? Laura?
Could you clarify how many units and how many parking spaces for those units?
So it's 56 parking spaces, and then, is it 50 units?
54.
54.
Since I know I'm supposed to stand up here. So it's really 1 unit. In senior housing of this type, we typically don't need 1 space per unit. But under the code, I think it requires that. 1.25. Okay, yeah. So if we certainly have everything covered from the resident standpoint if we do 1 and 1, 1 for 1. And then we'll have a couple of extra spaces for staff, management or a maintenance person that would come in or be there. A lot of our seniors on independent living do have assistance folk that come in, personnel staff that come in from, what's the Angels, can't think of the.
I don't know. My mind is a blank.
Well, visiting angels, visiting angels, I knew I thought about it. So companies like that provide daily needs, they fly in, right? And so any rate, that will allow them to, for sure, we would have enough parking, because not everybody's gonna have a car at all.
Okay.
Not at all, so, okay.
And just to clarify, having been at the Planning Commission meeting, this extension of the time limit is not related to a change in the number of units or the number of parking spots. That's not what this extension is
Right.
about.
And the extension period will go well beyond whether or not, the award date is in May. The extension goes to when? A year from now? Okay. So we will know well inside that 1-year period. And so the extension period really doesn't even need to be mentioned in the zoning letter that we'll work with Judy on, because it doesn't bump against one another, so. Sorry.
We'll all work with you.
We'll all
It's
work.
good.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Great. Any other questions or comments? All right, so do we need to vote?
Yes.
Okay, and the vote is to extend,
Give a year extension.
is that,
To approve Planning Commission's decision to allow a 1-year extension for the
Okay.
preliminary PUD plan for Holland
so
Seniors.
I will entertain a motion to approve Planning Commission's recommendation to extend the PUD for a year.
I move that we support Planning Commission's decision to extend this for 1 year.
A second?
Okay, all those in favor, we can just do a roll call, or we can just do a?
You can.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, great. Onward and upward.
I want to, just as an aside, there's an organization called Strong Towns. Brian, you've been to some of the meetings, and I
Yep.
get their email. The purpose of the organization is to look at what makes, in particular, small towns great. And so they have articles on all different things. Well, there are 2 articles, and I recently sent them today to Denise and Judy to forward to Planning Commission and Council about parking. And I think one of the articles says that there are actually more parking spaces in this country than roads. I think that's true. At any rate, we have a lot of parking space. And so both articles are saying that there are a number of towns that are doing away with parking minimums, period. That we have more parking than we need, and that businesses, or in this case, residents, should be able to figure out how many parking spaces they need. We're giving all this space over to cars. You know, it's impermeable surface usually, so interesting articles.
Well, you're fortunate too to have, with this site right on a bus line, and the walkability to downtown is extremely good, so that, in theory, should
Right.
reduce.
Or the rollability, yeah, so, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so Denise, the preliminary plan. Oh, that was it? Oh, that was all, okay, that was all one thing, gotcha, all right, cool. All right, so then I guess I am talking about evaluations, okay?
Okay.
So, we are on track, better than ever, to do our annual evaluations. And, we came up with a really good system last year. So we've got the Corkle piece, we've got the goals that we established for Josue for 6 months, for Judy last year. And so this week, we're going to be looking at having the Josue's direct reports, Judy's colleagues evaluating, doing kind of the 360. Council will be doing the same thing, but we will also have the piece where we also suggest what the goals should be for 2020. And so that's going to happen this week. Next week, we will collate and we'll all have a document to look at. And then we have established an executive session for our next meeting on the 16th to discuss those, the feedback from those evaluations. One of the things we need to decide is, like we did last year, the 2 council members that will meet with Josue and Judy. Those don't have to be the same 2 council members, but that meeting will be a review of their self-evaluation, and I forgot to mention that. So Judy and Josue are working on their self-evaluations right now. So that last time it was Kevin and I, we sat down and met with Judy and Patty, and we talked about their self-evaluation, the feedback from everybody that evaluated them. We did some tweaking to come up with a final set of goals for 2020. So so I think unless anyone has something different they want to do, I think that's a process that worked really well. So then the question is, who would be the 2 council members to meet with Judy and Josue? Which we could also decide on the 16th. So, but if anyone, in particular is, thinking about this, I guess I will want to be one of those council members, so.
And I'll sort of do it if one of my colleagues does not want to.
And I would be willing.
Okay, let's make the final decision on the 16th. Okay, after we get all feedback.
Well, and I had
So-
I had a question. Is the 16th, the executive session is just council? We're
Yes.
not up for scrutiny at that point.
Right. This will be us
Okay.
reviewing all the feedback.
Okay.
And I'll take on the collating piece. But, we're gonna use the Survey Monkey like we did the last time and all that, so, yeah.
Okay.
Lisa, did you have a comment or thought?
No,
or-
I'm fine to let others do that, and I think it's an excellent process. I really like 360
Yeah.
feedback.
It is because, last time, and it'll be similar, I believe, 12 people are giving feedback for Josue and 9 people for Judy. So.
Kind of like the Last Supper.
Yes. So there's a lot of feedback, yeah.
Who's going to do our evals?
See?
Actually, that's what I
voters.
was
I mean,
thinking.
Well, and that
I
is-
only mean that with a certain amount of glibness, because ultimately it's the community who evaluates us
Yeah.
through the election process. But on the other hand, I
Yeah.
always welcome input about how to navigate and move more effectively with the team. So I don't know how to ask for that, but I'm open to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking that as well.
Let's talk about that because, we modeled, the new approach, on, my experience with Rails to Trails, which I think is a really good feedback model. And this year, they haven't done it for 10 years, but this year, the executive team is being evaluated. So I think that is something, let's explore it, like how, we might do something like that. I don't think we should talk about it tonight, but I think we should definitely look at it.
And I think we've done a good job in developing a culture of civility and of mutual respect, whether we agree or disagree or have various things that we're the most passionate about. And I think to whatever extent we can bottle that so that we can continue to be civil and efficient, I think that's good.
I like it.
Here, here.
Okay, well said. All right, so, Josue?
All right.
Oh, gosh, that crept right up on me.
All right. Quick update on the active transportation plan, South Walnut and Short Street Temporary Traffic Initiative. You may be aware that we've closed the collection of the feedback from residents via the online survey. We received 704 survey responses, and we're currently analyzing the reports, and we'll issue a report at a later council meeting. I want to point out that the newspaper did run a story on the results, and that was in last week's edition, and that's with the preliminary data or the summary data of all the service results that we received. In today's packet, we included.
Well, and I guess, since we're talking about this, two challenges that have arisen around, and survey data is always, got its hiccups. One of those being that people, and I tried it out myself, were able to, take the survey as many
Again
times
and
as
again.
they wanted to, right? And I'm not saying that that means that the overall results weren't valid, but I think it is important to point out that, unfortunately, unless you give people a code or something, there is that aspect. I don't think most people took it multiple times, but that was something that, we knew about on the front end. And so, anyway.
Yes, and Brian, to comment on that, part of our analysis is to look at IP addresses and the correlation of data within those IP addresses. So, IP address is a good indicator of where that information is coming from, and there's a couple ways that works. I think the Antioch College has one public IP address, so all the students that submit anything over the web makes it look like it's coming out of one IP address. So corporate institutions such as Antioch would set it up in that way to protect the privacy of their students. We're able to track the IP address and figure out some of the business IP addresses, like the schools, the senior center. But there are other addresses that look that they're more generic IP addresses that have submitted duplicate results, and that could be you and someone in your household are sharing the same iPad. You complete it and you pass it on to the next person, and the same household completes it again, and they would show up under the same IP addresses. But you could also be in a situation where you tried it once, refreshed, and did it again, or a situation where you refreshed, all the data is still in the web form and it gets resubmitted because you hit the submit button again. SurveyMonkey is an advanced tool that can help filter some of that. We didn't activate all the advanced filters because we wanted to leave it open, and that's, that was the risk of leaving it open, but we wanted to capture as many people as possible. But so in terms of identifying some of these duplicates, we have looked through the IP addresses and found duplicates, and now we're looking at how the data correlates. There'll be some that may be very obvious that they're duplicates. They enter the same information in all the fields and including the same comments on the 3 comment questions. So we'll look at that and provide a report along what we think may be a duplicate data. But one other thing we're also looking at is how does the data correlate with specific user? How are the parents as a group responding to the initiative? How are residents responding to the initiative in other groups? Because I think that gives us a picture of what's the sentiment by stakeholder. So we'll provide that report at an upcoming meeting. Included in my manager's report is the update on the 2020 budget presentation. We included the presentation in this week's packet. There were no changes requested by council. The last council meeting I presented on the third quarter financials, I've included that, print out that report in this packet, and we did not get your acceptance or approval of that report, so we would like to check off the box that you received it and accepted that quarterly report.
Okay, let's do that now. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the third quarter financials.
I move that we approve the third quarter financials.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay.
All right, thank you. We've got a few project updates. You might have noticed the Dayton Street and King Street work is almost, the ramp is in, the sidewalk is in. We just need a little detailing work that needs to be done.
And it's good to remind again that we got the 15,000 grant.
Correct, we got
Thanks,
that
Johnny.
50,000 for that bike ramp there that you see there. That's that first picture on the left. That's the ramp connecting the bike trail down to the playground area, so the skate park. This ramp, you can't tell in the picture, but there are 2 landing areas in the design, so it's not a steep ramp. It's got 2 landing platforms in the ramp. So it's ready to go. We got a couple more work to go, but for the most part, it's done. Did you?
Handrails gonna be put in, but they're
Yeah.
waiting for it to cure.
Yep, so, I bet those handrails are gonna be attractive to the skateboarders. All right, we've had some the sewer service lines have been installed at the new fire station, or at least, underway. The flour and sugar distribution, honoring the bequest of Willing Gunn, is ongoing. We're currently working with the Art Council on final deliveries.
And can you highlight what that means? Why the Arts Council is involved in that?
Johnny?
The Art Council has expressed concerns to be able to pass out brochures and bags and help deliver it so they can get the word out for the Willing Gaunt statue to try to collect some donations. So they've done a lot of things. They've provided the bags for the flour and sugar. It's a reusable bag. Tom Market's on one side and Willie Gaunt and the picture of him on the other side. And so we've delivered 51 to date, and the Art Council has got the other 40. So we are trying to hook up with them so they can, and a lot of them, we didn't leave none on the porches this year. So the Art Council wanted to take them in the evening times, because we're delivering them during the day, 7 to 3:30, they're not home. So the Art Council is gonna reach out to them at nighttime to deliver them. But mainly it's to get the word out there about the fundraising for the memorial.
Thank you, Johnny. All of our scheduled sidewalk grinding work has been completed. We've had additional sidewalk and curb repairs done. Most of it is ongoing. We want to kindly remind residents not to write on our concrete. This is an example of one of the writings on the fresh concrete. It either says, "I was here," or "I was here." So, yeah, the other one, do you have the picture of the other one? We've had someone walked on fresh concrete and left their shoe prints.
Which did require ducking under several
Yes.
taped off areas,
Yes.
just to.
It required effort to get into
Yeah.
the
Right.
concrete.
Well,
And
and
they
as
did.
we know, the cost to repair that kind of stuff is significant.
Right.
So, yeah.
Looks like a size 11.
I think,
Cinderella.
yes. We're gonna try to match it to.
I can say that that one's one of 20, I think it's 21 feet print. This particular person walked the entire length and another one cut one at a 45-degree angle.
Wow.
Luckily, it was almost hard, so hopefully that'll wear off. But it's right out front.
When I was living in Seattle along the main drag downtown, there were the foot markings of a couple dancing various dances together, like the foxtrot, the tango, the waltz. So you could put your feet in those things and pretend that you were doing those dances. So perhaps if people can't restrain themselves, they could at least imprint a dance step or two. I'm not advocating for that, but like, do something interesting.
You heard it here first.
And final note of my report, we had a community meeting regarding the Vernay cleanup. We've had a lot of interest. We had around 50 individuals attend the meeting. They submitted 47 written questions. There were many questions that were asked during our presentation that were answered. We answered about a third of the questions. We're gonna draft responses to all those questions, as many as we can, and that we have information. Things that we don't have information, we'll follow up with the appropriate parties. That may be Vernay or the EPA or someone else. But be on the lookout for those frequently asked questions or responses to those questions.
Do you
And I
have a
want-
sense of when that would be completed and who is helping with that?
We haven't tackled it yet, so we'll get some help to type the questions. And then we'll probably create a master list and circulate it with the subcommittee. There may be things that we already have answers to.
I could type them.
Okay,
Do you have them?
I do, I have them in the.
And then if there are any that I happen to know the answers to, I could, right.
Right, and there may be some duplicates in there. So I want to thank Mary Ann for hosting and playing the Masters of Ceremony for her presentation.
It was a great meeting. And yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate, it was so important to have that follow-up meeting. And, yeah, thank you.
And a lot of work went into that, and staff helped, and also Tom Dietrich and Mark Ewald of the Environmental Commission put in a lot of work, as well as
Right.
our two resource people.
Right, yes, our two resource individuals. Johnny and the team has put together these great maps to bring in some of that information from the Vernay remediation plan onto our GIS mapping. So it's incorporated into our government mapping system. So we're able to identify the hot spots, and we even did try to replicate the waterhead protection capture zone into our GIS map, and the plume, the Vernay plume. So we now have that information on our GIS system. So it just doesn't exist in a presentational PDF file, but it's in our GIS system as well.
Yeah, and I think it's good, I want to share that, you know, not only have I heard several citizens talk about how appreciative they've been about the village being more proactive related to, you know, the Vernay thing, but also, you know, I've heard this about several other things recently. Just a lot of compliments about things like, I mean, Denise isn't here right now, but dealing with the junk cars and that kind of thing. So I just want you guys to know that I'm hearing a lot of really positive responses from villagers. So,
That reminds me, I had written down something and then I forgot to bring my notes, but I also got a call from a villager who was very happy about the junk car and who had just been having a lot of issues as a neighbor and was very appreciative.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I had a call too.
Yep.
Thank you,
Okay.
appreciate hearing that.
See? Anything else?
Yes, I have one more thing. On the utility roundup report, we're happy to report that we have 23% of our customers participating. That's a total of 408 participants. We had a revenue this year to date of $4,483.37, and net expenses of $3,446.24, for an ending fund balance in our utility roundup account of $7,461.86.
And you can't see, this is where I apparently was looking for, Lisa reminded me, that it's got the Thirsty Thursday on the 12th of December.
Yes.
It's part of the Europe report.
Correct. The brewery donates a portion of their proceeds to the
All right, December 12th.
December
Yeah.
12th.
Yeah, let's make sure to promote that one, because the last time it was not so well attended, so.
Okay.
But I'll make sure to do my share.
All right, that's my report.
Although I don't drink beer anymore. But anyway, I do want to mention, because the picture was in there, is, you know, what I consider the front of our building, but, you know, the west side, or east side. I don't know if people have noticed, it looks amazing.
The new sign.
The sidewalk
Oh,
and
yes.
everything, yeah, the sign, the sidewalk, and then the expanded area. And I guess I just want to mention, because you and I have talked about this, but I see an opportunity for a second bench in that area. We've had one bench, but I think two. And also, I think this is the time to pilot the new bike parking approach. And so one of the things I want to mention is Xenia used the Career Center to produce those, you know, use. I kind of like the model where it's like on a post and it's a circle. I think it's a little bit more efficient, but, you know, we can explore that. But anyway, they have the capacity to do that. We can have our YS in, you know, the middle. And, you know, I'd like to pilot those and then like think about how we could, get businesses downtown to sponsor those for more bike parking.
Did you say Green County Career Center?
Yeah, yeah.
Would you
And so,
share the contact info?
yeah, yep. So, but that's how Xenia did theirs, so.
And have you said, Johnny, who did the artwork on the sign?
I probably have not recently. The meter readers, Travis and Rose, took that on from the start to finish. You'll start seeing some more of their artistic work when they're not reading meters. I've tasked them with some other things in the village to do, with signage and different wall decals. But they did a tremendous job. I gave them what was the old style, and they put their spin to it. If you look at the front of the building, that sign mimics the actual Bryant Center. That's why the design is curved at the top, and it's got it looks just like the Bryant Center. I even asked him, I said, why'd you paint it one? He goes, it's shading. I'm like, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
See?
so they're awesome team to work with, but that's a little bit of the things that we're trying to do in-house when they're not reading meters, is try to tackle some of them projects.
Nice.
So you'll see more of their work coming around. So, and the reason why the expansion of that is to put bicycle parking on the left-hand side with a bench on each side.
Sweet.
So I'm glad you told me where to go. I can give it Green County Career Center and see
Yeah,
if they can.
I mean, I think it's a great partnership,
Focus on.
and, I imagine if they come up with a template, we could get
We could do them down.
Emporium and
Correct.
Tom's and others to sponsor, yeah,
Absolutely.
cool, thanks. Yeah, Travis Hodling, who is,
A local.
if you guys don't all know, has, done a lot of the murals, along with Pierre downtown, big YSKP, supporter, so, really cool,
He's got a famous piece, The Stairs of the Glen.
yes.
Yes, so you've probably seen that around. I also want to recognize the Public Works team for the tree lighting. Thank you guys for coming out for the tree lighting. That was a successful
And the
event.
costumes were awesome.
Yes,
That was so great.
good costumes. Thank you.
Cool.
I'd like to recognize the chief, since we're sitting here recognizing him, who intervened on what was a difficult situation regarding a junk car and late at night and upset people. And I understand that you came and helped out, and it was appreciated.
Okay, Judy.
I have nothing further.
Wow. All right, so future agenda items.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna nail down our retreat.
Yep, I'll have an agenda there.
We're gonna nail down our charter amendments.
Yep.
What else?
You need your MAC report and debrief, Managers
Yes.
Advisory Committee.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have a swearing in for art and culture. And, having looked at how heavy that agenda is, am willing to push the Art and Culture Commission presentation into January.
Okay.
It won't have a negative impact on any of our ideas.
Is Renergy coming?
I'll double check, but they should be there.
Do you want to move that parameters of automated ticketing? I don't know that that's time sensitive, but
I'd love to at least have something, a written report, even if we don't have time. If, I'm very curious about that. So do we have the treasurer's report?
oh, we didn't put that on here. I don't know why that would be overlooked. Treasurer's report.
Okay. Lisa, do you want to work on the year in review again together?
Sure.
Okay, we did that PowerPoint last year.
Sure.
Which is, so separate from Josue, typically the village manager also does a annual report, but yours can come in January, so you don't have to have it for the next meeting.
Is there a reason that needs to be on December 16th, though, given the agenda overall being so packed? I'm not trying to put it off for too
Yeah,
long.
I mean,
but-
I think, you know, we'll look at it this week, and yeah, if we don't have time, we can push it, so, yeah. Okay, anything else?
Your knee must hurt. Said your knee must hurt.
The dreads are right off.
Okay,
They don't
well,
come too high.
wow, efficient meeting tonight. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
A second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays.
Thanksgiving.
Please,
Okay, let's see.
here.
You should
How's
be
Todd
okay
doing?
because
He's coming along.
I'll pull it
He's,
to the day and correct it for the one.